Hi, I'm Joshua, and I'm an INTP, and first and foremost, I would like to say thank you for viewing this video, and the topic of this video, or the content within this video, will be on equality. And I try to stay out of the social political arena as much as I possibly can, and the only reason that this topic is even emerging on my channel or even coming to mind is because I'm consistently bombarded with media, and whether or not I'm talking to people within the scientific community, intellectual counterparts and associates and contemporaries, or just regular people, or listening to individuals talk in a coffee shop or whatever, what have you, the question of equality in at least American culture is one that always comes to mind. And it's so heavily running through academia. So it's really centering this topic in the academic circle is where I would like to start, and then going to more broader general setting in an American culture. So I think that the question of equality in academia has much to do with academic performance and what one should expect of a student and what opportunities a student should receive given their standing or their makeup as an individual. So, does IQ determine one's potential success? Should there be gifted educational programs? Should there be marginal educational programs? Should we keep kids separate? What should we do with children in terms of their future is essentially the question. And the drawback and the rebuttals and the agitation and contention with the current academic system is the fact that there exists standardized testing, and standardized testing doesn't seem to be getting the results that we thought it would, or even some never thought it would or believed it would, and that there are a large deal of people being marginalized to certain statistics. Various ethnic groups, such as the African American ethnic groups or the Latino ethnic groups, particularly in specific socioeconomic backgrounds, are not receiving the same collegiate opportunities that other groups in America, such as whites and Asians, are receiving. Just there's a whole mess of topics associated with the discussion on equality, and I'm addressing these things primarily because I want to take them off the table insofar as to say that equality is something that should be thought of from an intellectual perspective rather than a socioeconomic perspective. We need to consult science, and we need to consult experience per se before we start consulting the socioeconomic standpoints. We should even consult logic and reason primarily, because this is such a diverse topic that's insidious and so sticky in its makeup and just extant and existence in its emergence on so many platforms and campuses, and it's so deeply entrenched in education legislation that it's just frightening. It's too close. I just say that it's too close. Our eyes are too close to the object, and because we're too close, it's impeding our vision, and we should step back and look with logic, with reason, and with what the facts say, so that we can embark on a better direction and journey insofar as how we're setting up the academic landscape, and then how we're setting up the social landscape, and so far as what we expect from people and the policies that are in place that help people achieve certain means or continue to level out and promote certain people in certain positions. I mean, mainly taxes, the question of equality versus the wealthy and the poor, or the upper class versus the middle and the lower class sphere. So it's just, that's another one. I'm just saying that's where I'm drawing some of the things from. So I'm just saying, because there's so much writing on this, let's be as logical and as rational as we possibly can be. And it's to say, the question is, what is equality and what does equality mean? One problem I'm having in academia is whether it's in the grade school level, whether it's in the middle school level, or whether it's in collegiate level, it means that everybody's essentially the same. And I don't agree with that. Everybody's not the same. That's not what empiricism shows. People, whether they're born with different distributions of IQ, height, physical appearance, divergent thinking patterns, just there's so many different attributes that a human being can come equipped with that differ amongst every person. There's a homogeny insofar as that we're human beings, but there's individual differences amongst people. And we have to ask what is the proper balance between respecting differences and creating homeostasis or homogeny or standardization. I don't like the word standardization, but it's one that I think is necessary. So let me make somewhat of a partial case for the necessity of standardization in a Western culture. And it goes insofar as this, that when we're not providing houses for people, when we're not providing necessarily fixed incomes for people, when we're not socialistically based, we have a society in which one has to go out and create and produce things in the society and bring value to a marketplace. So one's primary role as an agent in just the capitalistic society is being an agent that brings value to the society, because we're a value-dependent culture, and so far as the things that we create, we have to send them places, we have to do things with them so that they bring in capital to us. It is therefore the individual's role or their agency to be something that brings value to the marketplace, or something that brings value to society. And so we can't look at that. We can't say we hate standardization or just create thoughts in standardization without looking at that essential fact, or that essential factor in a capitalistic society. Because if one is bringing value to a marketplace, it's just that you when you're dealing with contractors, business people, ones who have jobs, or universities, or whoever who's writing on the fact that they have to bring value to the marketplace, they have to have a field or a net of some sort in which they can filter out what the students, the employees, the whatever is being brought into the organization or within the sphere or the social setting. They have to filter out the ones that they don't think will bring the subsequent value that they need, and they have to bring in the ones that they think will bring the value that they need. It's a value-based metric or trade. Of course, it's not perfect insofar as that people are imperfect things, and we just have a great deal of, Christians call it original sin, I call it evolutionary baggage. We just have a great deal of things that are attached on to us that prevent us from making necessarily the most clearest, rational, and equitable decisions, even given the fundamental tenets or just this specific factor of capitalism. But the fact still remains, for the system to be what it is, you have to acknowledge this and go with this in our talk about equality and just what it means. So there's a value-based question at the heart of everything. And the value-based question as in, can one generate value given their set of attributes or just whatever it is they have? And I think that that's at the bottom of everything. I think that that's at the bottom of everything. Now, I think going from the discussion of value, what then gets asked, given, I think, just because of our Western society and our bent towards engineering, I would say engineering, not science, just our bent towards pragmatism insofar as achieving results. We want to be able to predict things. That's what the filtering system's for. That's what the net's for. We're trying to predict what to do and who should do what so that we can get the maximum gain or the maximum value out of these courses of actions. That's what business people or just anybody essentially is coming up with in the Western capitalistic society, and any capitalistic society in general. I don't know if I mean I don't study like market dynamics and socialism or in communism, so I don't know if it's the same question or anything like that. I just know that there are certainly things, just certainly that's a very important question in American society, and it's what sort of directing the engine, or even the makeup of the machines. We like to predict things so that we can get just the most certain sort of vantage point we can have in making our decisions. Though I'm not somebody who believes in certainty, I don't think anything's certain, but many people, this is just how the system runs. There's just I don't know if it's an axiomatic assumption. I haven't read enough Hayek. I don't know where it comes from. I just know when I make an analysis, I can see that it's explicitly there. Whether in people's statements, whether in their job acquisitions, or whether in it's there. Even why you have the Ivy League schools doing so much of the creation of dynasties and just continuing to admit certain families over other families in various socioeconomic backgrounds, or just academic success at Harvard or Princeton or wherever you're talking about, because they're just looking for certainty. They're not, that's what they're doing. They're looking for certainty so they can make a choice, so that they can increase the value that they promote, so that they can receive the greatest amount of gains in return, fiscal or whatever resource, fiscal, what monetary. I don't know what the gains are necessarily, because I don't know the intricacies of the system. They may even be political, but they definitely are political, but they could be social, they could be political, they could be economic. There could be so many different ways, but they're trying to gain the most or the robust amount of those things that they can gain from the admittance of these individuals, and having a connection to these families, and having a connection to these individuals and organizations and whatnot and what have you. And so that's just the world we're living in some respects. And I don't know. I'm not here to say how to change it or what should change. I'm saying, given just our discussion on equality, this needs to be considered and this needs to be addressed, because there is an empirical fact that there are individual differences amongst people, and people are going and they want to do this assorting process so that they can have the greatest deal of certainty, so they can get what they want. So when we're talking about the question of equality, we need to step away from this one of sameness, because people, when they hear same, they assume same means, well, then everybody should get the same opportunities. And I think equality means equal opportunities, but I don't think it means equal admittance to every opportunity. There has to be some sort of meritocratical structure in there, even if it's small and faint. It has to be there. And it does seem like it's small and faint a lot of times, because a lot of it is about who you know and what family you belong to, and station and socioeconomic station. But still, there has to be a meritocratical piece, so that there's just even it can fit the actual need of capitalism for gains based on value generation. Because you hire a bunch of people who are schmucks, that's fine. You need at least one dynamo or one master or expert or genius or whatever you want to, or maverick, whatever you want to call them, in there so they can generate the subsequent missing value given the overall pool that you have. And that's just, that's why there's so much funding that goes into scientific research, because there's a lot of money to be made when there's somebody who comes around and can actually figure out how to best understand reality and to render it to our understanding, because there's just a tremendous amount of fiscal gain to be had, or just people who come and revolutionize procedures, or just infrastructure and business dynamics, or whatever, just people who can come in and revolutionize a thing. They present a high amount of value because there's just a tremendous amount of gain to be made off of whatever they've revolutionized, partly for its novelty, partly for its prescientness, or just its depth of insight, or depth of capability, or depth of whatever. It's just, it does so much and it gets so far. It gets so much deeper and it gets so much farther than anything else that's come before it. So it's totally making life more efficient, or it's making life more clear, or even more vague, not vague, but uncertain in some respects, but uncertain in the right ways, one should say, or one could suppose. It's just that it's doing this very real thing that's important, given just the overall landscape. So if there is just this need, and you're trying to sort of have equality in just academia in general, and I say the marketplace because that's where eventually everybody in academia goes, or even if they stay in the universities. Everybody in school eventually goes to the marketplace, and everybody in academia eventually universities eventually go to the marketplace, even if the marketplace is their universities. I mean, because the capital militant complex that's within universities, you just don't get away from this picture. And too often, I think in the talk of equality, it's one that's largely egalitarianly led, or it's so conservatively led that both of them are just hard to listen to and are terse aggravations more than just, for me at least, because there's nothing acrimonious coming out of either camps. It's just nobody seems to be asking what makes the most sense. It's just given what we value and what we believe, this is what we're saying, but I don't think any of it really makes the most sense. It's like you have to take care of the marginalized groups in society, but at the same time you do need a surplus of people who are able to generate things that have value, because that's the whole point of that's not the whole, well, that's just what makes a capitalistic society run. Value generation and the quantity of value one can generate, because that brings gains. Value brings gain. And it's like, if you take care of the marginal, but you also have to look at the value spectrum. So yes, there's the haves and the have-nots, but we need both, and we need to figure out a way that they can dance and play in the game together, rather than trying to demonize or villainize one or the other. But it's just to say, and specifically in education, it's like, holy crap, it sucks, the talk of equality insofar as setting student expectations and standards. So, man, most schools do not have gifted programs. They don't have programs for gifted kids. And then the assortment process, most schools don't have gifted programs. Most schools don't, what was it? There was a few statistics that just bothered me. Most schools don't have gifted programs. Most schools don't have, their standards are separated amongst their programs. And one would ask, like, oh, well, you're saying not, you're saying differences should be respected, but you don't think standards should be the same. And I'm saying, no, I like, well, you'll just hear what I'm saying, but it's just that there's just this great step function to things. Like, one thing's here, one thing is here, another thing is there, another thing's down here, while the other thing's up here, and it creates all this just disruption and makes the machine slow and inefficient and horrific in the results it's achieving. And you only have just, it's like the problem, the rarity of good. There's so few good schools because just legislation and the way that the dang thing is structured essentially is fundamentally flawed, but we're not even asking that question. One of the fundamental flaws in how it's set up is that it goes off of a Pavlovian enlightenment standpoint, and where just people are essentially empty vessels or blank slates. You can pour whatever you want in them and inundate them over time, and you create what you want. You essentially create the rational man, or you create the intellectual, you create whatever have you by sitting there and putting them through this reiterative learning process. But I mean, like, let's be real, that's not true. It's just not. Individual differences play a tremendous role in somebody's education. It's just what one can actually, their capabilities, just the ones that they've developed insofar as skills, and their innate ones just play a serious role in what one can do. For example, if you have I would say, for example, if you have a student who is very bright and they have an extensive mathematical background before they even step into a math class, and they're just very intelligent, they're not going to have to do nearly as much homework as somebody who doesn't have a good mathematical background. Even it is not like, don't even look at the same levels of intelligence, but look at literally their training background, just insofar as what their primary school years were, what their just everything up to high school until they step into the college classroom. It's going to follow them in there, and that is really going to say something about their level of performance. I mean, it's just that's what happens. And you look at those two students, one that has the substantial background, we can even take off the intellectual piece, but just say one who has a substantial mathematical background and one who has a poor mathematical background. Are you really going to be able to standardize the one at that point in the game, at that late in the game? It's just, are you really going to be able to standardize the one who has the poor background? Are you going to be able to set up the educational process to take the one who has the poor background and make them meet the one who has the exceptional background? And just the sort of outside results say that that's not possible, but it's why universities, or why colleges, some colleges and some universities, not all colleges and universities, but man, a lot of them, they talk to the lowest denominator, and you don't really get, unless you get some sort of, it depends on what, I think it depends on what field you decide to major in, or what subject you decide to major in. But it's like the lowest in the common denominator. That's who's spoken to, and it's like nobody's asking a question whether or not this is damning to the intellectualism that exists in American culture. And my thought is just that it is, but nobody ever asks that question. Well, I don't know if anybody asks that question, but I don't ever hear anybody asking that question. And it all centers around the notion of equality, that everybody is essentially the same, or that we shouldn't actually take in when we're talking about equality. We shouldn't consider just equal opportunity, but equal opportunity based off of a meritocratic structure. It's like you have to get things. You shouldn't just be given things because people are the same. It's like people are the same, but people don't do the same things. What I mean that people are the same is just people are Homo sapiens. They're the same, but do they do the same things, or can they even do the same things and achieve the same results? Hell no, they can't. It's like, sorry to get so passionate. Sorry, sorry. But no, they can't, and it's like, oh man, can we actually address this when we're talking about equality? People are not the same, and people don't need to be the same. And I don't understand why we have to live in a society where people have to be the same for us to be able to have respect and dignity for one another. I don't need to walk across the street and see another. So I'm African American and with Germanic descent. So I have German and African and yeah, I'm black and European mostly. So it's like, do I need to walk down the street and see another black person, or see another white person, or even deal with somebody who has the same political leanings as I do, to treat them with the dignity and respect? It's like, no, I don't need that, and I don't know why other people need that either. It's, well, I do to some extent know why. It's evolutionary baggage, but I'm saying, man, people just drop some of the evolutionary baggage, or as Christians like to say, original sin. I don't know, call it what you want, but it's just that people aren't perfect. Insofar as we don't make rational decisions, we don't make equitable decisions, we don't make the best ethical or moral decisions because we have some bit of hardware going on inside of us that is driving us fundamentally to make just the not correct decisions. And I mean, it's like not correct insofar as trying to generate an equilibrated state. It's like, there's no such thing as utopia, but if one could think, what's the best way to have it? Just what's the best possible solution to have? It would be one where everybody, given their differences and abilities, got the most of what they could get and were treated as fairly as possible, given the limitations of human nature, as they possibly could be treated universally. It's like that would be the best thing to occur. So when I'm saying that just we don't make the best choices, we don't make choices that are leading to equilibrated states in society, or just even within social settings, or just political settings, or schools. And I know I was supposed to be talking about schools, and I've jumped all over the place, and I apologize for that. But it's just into how's this back into academia. You should see, and to some extent this is there, but it's just not there. It's you have programs for kids who have marginal abilities in some areas. So you have the name is blanking on me, but rudimentary mathematical courses for people who should be able to do Algebra 2 but can't do the basic arithmetic operations that are needed to do algebra. You have those rudimentary courses, but it's are you really respecting their individual differences? And are you really respecting their individual differences and setting them up to actually have the ability, given their traits, what they're interested in, what they do have, just aptitudes and backgrounds in? Are you setting them up for that specifically per se. It's you can because even what the marginalizational classes assume is that you just take them, or just the rudimentary classes. I don't know what you could call them necessarily. Well, I do, but it's just the name's escaping me. And it's not really important, I think, at this point in time. Well, yeah, it is. I like accuracy. But I just can't come up with it right now. It's just when someone is not able to fit the standard, they're put in a level below to a standard that they can meet in the hopes of them gaining the skill and then moving up to that higher standard eventually. All schools have that sort of safety net program in them, though many people drop out of schools either way. But it's just in that setup, you're assuming that everybody's the same. Everybody can get to the same place. Yet we have valedictorians and things like that. Well, it's not to say that valedictorians. It's just that there's too much conflation and conflicting elements and just the structure of academia centered around the topic of equality, to where it's just more just from my observation, and I already made a video why I don't like education or schools, but just my observation is just damning the intellectual culture in universities in America, and it's a problem. Now, I'm seeming to be just a worrywart and Debbie Downer, as I like to take euphemisms from culture and use them, given an extroverted feeling nature, though I repress it. But being that said, I don't have a solution. That's really what I want to say. I just am saying, okay, so I don't have a solution to those problems, but I do have an idea about what equality is, insofar as that equality is only fair. It's just a level playing field. It's nothing else. We shouldn't be anything else. That's all equality should be, is a level playing field. I'm black, but I don't like affirmative action or many of the things that were put into play. Now, I get affirmative. There was a certain point in time in history where affirmative action was necessary because black people were not going to get into those positions and those places in society, whether they had the skills or the abilities or not, just given the color of their skin and the just social rules and hierarchy that existed at the time. That just wasn't a thing. But there are things now that is just like, you need to have, the legislation was necessary for a time, but it's not necessary now, insofar as that people have so much more opportunity. And is the playing field level? No, it's not. I don't think it's level at all. But I think what people are saying in legislation about what would make a level playing field is just a game of stick trading. It's just people want to trade one group has the big stick and they're beating everyone over the head with it, and now the other group wants the big stick and wants to beat everybody over the head with it. Then the other group wants to take the big stick and beat them over the head with it, because we're just all a bunch of crazy damned apes, it seems like sometimes. But it's just to say that, we have to ask, what is getting the most equitable standpoint in view? What's the biggest encompassing one about equality and it's the social construction of equality in relation to the individual, because it is a social construction insofar as that people need to come together and harmonize in some respect, but the individual differences have to be respected for that harmony to even be achieved. It's just I swear, nobody looks at it like that. But it's just, that is where we need to start. And then we have to look at the playing field. Is just the playing field even, and is it level? just not paying attention to individual differences, because you can't equate for individual differences when you're actually making the legislation or the structure. You got to be as general as possible. And is there a problem with that? Yeah, but if you start with the most acrimonious, is there a problem with it insofar as it might leave certain groups out in some respects? Yes, I think that's always a problem, but that's why we have that's why it's a republic, and you can argue with people and talk about things. But it's just, you have to start. If you start with the most acrimonious view you can of equality, you may not have that problem be as rambunctious and rampant as it is now. It's like it's annoying and stupid. I swear, it's like so much of life is stupid. But no, so those are just really my thoughts on the talk of equality in America. I don't want to really get into the race space. I don't want to get into the monetary space. I don't want to get into the social political space, though I touched on all of them into some respects. I'm not that type of person, but I just noticed that, man, if I'm not being bombarded with media just 24/7, or even my friends talking to me about these things all the time, or just even picking up, I don't watch the news, I don't read the newspaper, I don't even want to go outside my house at times, because it's just like I don't even want to go to a party or a get-together per se with just people my age or people older than me or anything else, or just like, I don't want to hang out with black people, I don't want to hang out with white people, I don't want to hang out with Mexicans, I don't want to hang out with Asians, I don't want to hang out with anybody, because it's just like, I don't care what space I go into, man, this thing comes up. It's like, it comes up, always comes up, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's annoying, being an INTP, like, I just don't like any of it, but it's like in my face all the time. So I had to make a video on it eventually, just to get it out there, and say something about the issue. Even if someone doesn't feel I've said anything really, trust me, I've said some things, and it's just that I don't have any exact solutions. I just have an analysis of the issue, and I would spend 90% of my time thinking about the problem before I ever try to come up with a solution. Einstein. Or just me as an INTP, because that's really how my mind works. So, that's my video, and hopefully you found it interesting at the very least, possibly insightful, and possibly offensive, but I'm irrational. I mean, like, what? I am irrational, so, I mean, I offend people. That's what happens. Thank you.